Hey, how's it going? My name's Austin Tibbetts. Me and Richard Moore, we are doing a documentary on a guy named Bill Hughes. He is a former mayor in Murphy, North Carolina, and we went up the road to Murphy to interview him and to hear about his memories of the railroad whenever it used to operate in and around Murphy. Also, our objective to interviewing Mr. Bill was to figure out what happened to the line up there in Murphy and why it went out of service. So, hope you guys enjoy this short documentary on his memories and also on just some of the history of the railroad in Murphy, North Carolina. So, hope you enjoy.
I was born here in Murphy. My parents came from a little town in Georgia, Fairmount, Georgia.
Okay.
My grandfather came up with the railroad. He bid on this job. He was agent down at the L&N Depot from 1937 until he died in 1965.
Wow.
So it goes without saying I was born here, and as soon as I could just get around, I started staying up at the depot.
Yeah.
And as time passed and I grew older, I began to know all of the railroad men, and as a little boy, they'd carry me up in the cab of the big steam locomotive, and I'd get to sit in the engineer's lap, and we'd switch cars in the yard there. And of course, for a small boy, that was just like dying and going to heaven.
Oh, yeah.
That was just excitement beyond words, and I still have some very vivid memories of that. And then while I was there at the depot, staying there during the summertime, my grandfather taught me telegraphy, and I could send and receive messages and so on like that, and I was copying train orders. You all the train crews, you and by their first name, and it was just a wonderful experience for a young boy. And then later on, I went to Western Carolina University,
Okay.
and I picked up one degree. I picked up a Bachelor of Science in Education at Western Carolina. I picked up a Master of Arts at Western Carolina, and I picked up an EDS, but I had to do one semester at the University of North Carolina in school of law to get that degree completed. Mm-hmm. So I served as principal for 32 years of Murphy Elementary School while I was still working on my graduate degrees. And I was 25 when I became principal.
Wow.
And I was the youngest principal in the state with that size school. I had about close to 900 students.
Wow, that's a big elementary school.
And about 50 teachers and 7 whom had taught me.
Mm-hmm.
And I wasn't Mr. Hughes to them, I was still Billy.
Yeah.
And Billy was smart enough to be called Billy because they took me under their wing. And my success over there, especially in the beginning, I think I can attribute to the fact that they took care of me.
That's
That
awesome.
they were the authorities there, and that was an extremely pleasant experience for the next 32 years. And I got to serve on all kinds of state committees, which was quite an experience. Got to go to Washington, D.C. with the Appalachian Regional Commission, which I represented the western end of the state for about 2 years.
Cool.
And
Did you live up there?
no, we didn't.
Okay.
We flew up there every time they would have a meeting.
Mm-hmm.
And those were very educational. I enjoyed that. Then I retired in, I retired in 2017, December 2017, after 20 years as mayor. So I won 3 elections as city council
Wow.
and 5 elections as mayor. And for 4 of the 5 terms I served as mayor, I had no opposition.
Huh, that's awesome.
So I know everybody in town, and they know
Yeah.
me. I had an open door policy. Anyone with a problem, you walk in. You don't have to call for an appointment. If you want to see me, just come on in, the same way I had over school, but you can't do that now. So I got to know all the people in town, and we became good friends, and I got to know the town a lot better, and it was just a pleasure for me. It wasn't a job. It was just a real delight because I look forward to coming to work every day. And we got a lot of grant money, and we've made some progress, and I'm very pleased about that. And of course, when the recession hit, that was devastating because small towns are the first to feel the effects and last to feel the recovery.
Yep.
So we're still in the recovery mode here,
Yeah.
but things are definitely picking up.
Good.
The railroads left here. The L&N pulled up their track about 1982 or 83, I believe.
On the
And
south side of town.
Yeah. The Southern left their tracks but discontinued service, about 1989, 1990. So
Okay.
Murphy is left without rail service.
Yeah.
Now, the Southern Railroad left their track down. It's still
Yeah.
down here. The L&N pulled their track up all the way to the Georgia state line because they didn't want to pay North Carolina tax.
Right there in Mineral Bluff, Georgia.
And the depot down here and all the property around it, that was still there, so they gladly gave it to the town to be rid of it. So I got that for nothing, the L&N Depot.
Wow.
That
You
was-
love
my
about
grandfather was station agent at the L&N Depot.
Right here in Murphy.
He actually worked for the Louisville and Nashville Railroad Company almost 54 years.
Wow.
He came to Murphy in 1937 with the L&N Railroad to become agent of the depot down here. And he died in 1965. He didn't retire, he stayed on.
Wow.
And I was born here in 38, so I just grew up in the depot practically.
Yeah.
That was my second home. I loved it down there. And there was an agent and an operator and a clerk and a trucker. And we had a train that would come in the evening and go out in the morning every day, steam locomotives. And I can still remember getting in the cab of them and just the awesome feeling of having all of that power under you. A small boy just couldn't explain.
Yeah.
But as I said, the train stayed over at night and left the next morning, went to Blue Ridge, Copper Hill, and then on.
Yeah.
Came back in the next evening.
Hmm.
So it was called the Murphy Branch Line.
Yeah.
And we're trying to get the railroad from Murphy to Andrews refurbished so we can have tourist trains coming in and maybe do some freight business because the tracks are still down there.
Yeah,
The L&N's gone forever.
Yeah.
They looked at perhaps trying to rebuild it, but it was just financially unfeasible.
Mhm.
We worked for 10 years and kept them from taking it out, the former mayor and city clerk and I. But eventually they did get a judge that was sympathetic to their situation in Atlanta, and there goes the railroad. And I hated to see it go because anytime a small town, in the mountains especially, loses a mode of transportation, that's bad. Because to get any kind of industry in here, you have to have the capability of moving heavy tonnage through the mountains.
Yeah.
Our roads are just not really equipped for that, even though they've improved 200% over the last 20 years. But you still, for heavy industry, you still have to have something capable of carrying heavy tonnage out, and the railroad's the only thing right now that can do it. Because we've got the Nantahala Gorge on the east end, we've got the Ocoee Gorge, and then we've got the Appalachian Mountains in between. So regardless, we have to go through the crooked roads in the gorge, following the river, or we'd have to go over mountainous terrain that would really take a tremendous amount of trucking to haul what one train could.
Yeah.
So for that reason, we're pushing, because we feel like heavy industry is not going to come back, because they're wanting to be located at least within 20 miles of an interstate highway, and we're not. So getting the train back would be a boon, I think, because that would give us a way of getting our merchandise out of here quickly and not have to wait for Corridor K to be finished. The 4-lane highway from Asheville to Chattanooga.
Yeah.
And estimated cost, I think, right now is around $900 million.
Pretty big number. So your personal interaction with the railroad, you said there was a few things you said about getting in the cab and stuff. And then over the phone, we talked about you seeing like cars get unloaded and stuff.
Oh, yes.
Here in town.
That was an everyday activity, watching the railroad cars get unloaded. And interestingly enough, automobiles, when I was a small boy, came in boxcars.
Yeah.
Brand new cars.
That's crazy.
The side would just practically slide back. They carried 2 on the bottom, they had racks that carried 2 on the top. And at the end of the platform where the boxcar was sitting, there was a level space, and then it gradually went down. So they'd back it out on the platform and back it down, and you'd see 4 new Dodge cars there, 4 new Chevys, or 4 new Fords.
That's
And
cool.
that's the way the cars came in. They had no truck transportation. I hated to see the railroad go because, like I say, when you lose one means of transportation, and incidentally, they were still getting a lot of cordwood out of here, about 21, 30 cars a week. And it was paying for itself, but they felt like the equipment could make them more money if they put it somewhere else. Now, this was when the Louisville Nashville Railroad was bought out or taken over by the Seaboard Coastline Railroad. And they were all for closing down branch lines. And Murphy is a branch line because it comes to Murphy and dead end. And incidentally, an interesting point to make, Murphy at one time was the smallest town in the United States that had 2 major railroads dead end.
Wow.
Now, they worked out an interchange program where the traffic going north could be transferred to the southern, and the traffic going south could be transferred to the L and N.
Mhm.
So it just made it that much more profitable. Instead of bringing in, they were bringing in and hauling out, and that's when you make the money. So they did that as long as both trains were in service, and they'd have an interchange service, and I'd always go down to the Southern Railroad where Mr. C.F. Plott was agent, and they still had telegraph down there all the way into Asheville.
Yeah.
And I'd get to practice down there and talk to some of the guys along the line there. I enjoyed that.
Wow.
I wanted to go to work for the railroad when I got out of high school, but I was only 16. And my grandfather said, well, they are not hiring anyone who's under 21. And that was back when you did what your parents and grandparents told you to do. He said, you're going to college.
Yeah.
Well, much against my will, I went to college. I'm glad I did now. Well, I went to summer school 3 sessions, and I got my degree in 3 years. And I said, okay, I'm ready to go to work for the railroad. I've got a college degree, but I was only 19.
Yeah.
He said, you still can't go. I said, I've got a college degree.
Yeah.
He said, that doesn't mean jack, son. He said, you gotta be old enough. I said, why? He said, by the time you're 21, they assume you've got a little common sense. He said, what you've got are out of books. He said, by the time you get 21, they anticipate that you've learned to apply that to some limited degree. So there was no further conversation about that.
Wow.
But there's still a warm spot in my heart for the railroad. I've got all kinds of railroad antiques, railroad memorabilia, and they remind me of a time when I guess perhaps life was a bit more simple. We're working very diligently to get the track restored.
Mm-hmm.
The 15 miles between Murphy and Andrews.
Yeah.
They can do it for $10 million. And we've had the money twice to do it with. And twice the General Assembly has taken it back because they'll walk into the Transportation Department and say, look, we're cutting your budget $5 million. That's all that needs to be said.
Yeah.
So the money just had a tendency to disappear.
Hmm.
Last year, our representative introduced a bill to pull the track up. Well, we got in touch with everybody we could. We had that bill pulled before it got to the Senate to be passed.
Wow.
Then he passed another one to pull it up in a year. Well, we got to that one. We had friends in Raleigh who got to that one, and they just erased 1 year and put 5 years.
Yeah.
So that passed. So we've got 5 years to get something going down here and to get this train going, and we're so near and yet so far.
Is there anything we could do to like help support the railroad being put back into service to come to here?
Just have them contact me, and I'll tell you what. Let's see, what's this? Oh, this is your map.
Yeah.
This is the map, Murphy Junction, Blue Ridge, Georgia, out of there. Let me see right here. And then my wife's number is 361-2031. That's cell.
Yeah.
Have them contact me, and I'll be glad to talk to them about it, or come
Sure.
wherever they might be and talk about it.
Yeah.
But if they know anyone in the state capital in Raleigh that's in a position of importance,
Yeah.
if they would write a letter supporting the reconstruction of the railroad or the refurbishment of the railroad between Murphy and Andrews, it would be a big help.
Yeah.
We had proclamations from the county commissioners, the town of Murphy, the town of Andrews. We had letters from every business in town, and that still didn't get it.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sorry to say this, but simple politics stopped it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Murphy was on the wrong side of the political fence
Yeah.
as compared to the friends in Raleigh.
So we would just like to thank Mr. Bill Hughes for taking the time to meet with us in Murphy and to make this project possible. We couldn't have done it without him, so we're so thankful. We're thankful also for all the people that have taken the pictures, that have documented over the years the line before it got closed and stuff. But we also would like to extend an invitation to anybody who might have any type of influence with the North Carolina state government or down at the Capitol in Raleigh, and you think that maybe you or somebody that you know could have an influence in getting the line restored back into Murphy, or possibly just helping keep the tracks down and not being taken up. If you think you could help out with that in any way, give Mr. Bill a call. He's super friendly, super awesome, and he would love for anybody that could maybe help get the railroad restored back into Murphy to give him a call and to see what they can do. So yeah, we hope you guys have a great day, and we hope that you enjoyed the video. Thank you so much.